All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm really excited for this deep dive because you guys send in some absolutely wild articles this time around.
Yeah, definitely some pretty crazy stuff going on.
It's all about the 2024 U.S. presidential election. And I'm not going to lie, some of these articles kind of blew my mind. Like,
Hmm.
seriously, we're talking major political upsets and potential historical what-ifs.
Yeah, I know, right?
So we've got snippets from online news articles that were all published like right after the election.
Right.
And let me tell you, the overarching theme here is not just about who won or lost.
No,
It's about how this election went down
totally agree.
and what it could mean for the future.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so first things first, every single article we got
Yeah.
is saying the same thing. Donald Trump won the 2024 presidential election.
Yep, Donald Trump is back in the White House.
It's pretty wild, right? Like one article even called it defying the odds.
It really was. I mean, most of the pre-election predictions were pointing in a very different direction.
Exactly. So it sounds like a lot of people were caught off guard.
You could say that again.
Like one article called it the most incredible political comeback in American history.
Incredible. Yeah, I think that's an understatement.
I mean, think about it for a second.
Mm-hmm.
A 78-year-old pulling off a comeback like this.
Yeah.
That's not something you see every day in modern politics.
No, you don't. And it raises all sorts of questions about the state of our political system, you know? Like, what does it say about the electorate? What does it say about the two major parties?
Yeah, good point. Oh, and get this. The articles are saying he won in a landslide in the Electoral College.
Yes. Which is kind of interesting because he was also predicted to win the popular vote, too.
Wait, so he was favored to win both?
It seems that way, which is pretty uncommon, you know?
Yeah, totally. But wait, how is that even possible? Can someone explain how someone can win the Electoral College without winning the popular vote?
Right. So remember, the U.S. doesn't directly elect the president.
Mm-hmm.
Each state gets a certain number of electoral votes based on its population.
Right.
And in most states, the candidate who wins the popular vote in that state gets all of that state's electoral votes.
Gotcha.
So a candidate can win the presidency by winning enough states to get a majority of electoral votes,
Yeah.
even if they didn't win the popular vote overall.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But hold on, you said that's how it usually works. So is there something different about this election?
Well, what makes this election really unusual is that a Republican won the popular vote.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, like one article said it's been a 20-year losing streak for Republicans when it comes to the popular vote.
Whoa, 20 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah, it is. So this could point to a really big shift in voter behavior, you know.
It definitely makes you think, okay, so we've got this unexpected winner
Right.
and a really unusual electoral map.
Yeah.
Because on top of that, Trump managed to flip some key states back to red.
Oh, absolutely. The article specifically mentioned Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin.
And those are states he lost in 2020.
Exactly.
So he basically reversed his losses from the last election.
Which is pretty significant, right? Like those states were crucial for him to get this victory.
For sure. But it wasn't just about winning back the people who voted for him before.
Nope.
Because the articles also talked about how he was able to appeal to voters he hadn't reached before.
Yeah, one article said he was making inroads among ethnic minorities.
Which is interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because he also maintained really strong support from his usual base.
Right. His white, rural, and working class base.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think is going on there?
Well, it suggests that maybe his messaging is evolving or expanding or something.
Interesting.
Like maybe he's figuring out how to connect with voters who didn't identify with him in the past.
Like maybe he's tapping into different concerns or anxieties or something.
Maybe. One article actually mentioned that he's been really focusing on economic issues lately.
Oh, right, and criticizing identity politics.
Exactly. So maybe that's resonating with voters who are more focused on like bread and butter issues.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. Definitely something to keep an eye on because it could have huge implications for the future of both the Republican and Democratic parties.
Totally agree. Okay, so we've talked about the outcome of the election.
Yes.
And some of the unusual things about it.
Right.
But what about the reactions?
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other can of worms.
Because I can only imagine what it was like for people who were expecting a different outcome.
Yeah, like imagine being a Kamala Harris supporter at Howard University on election night.
Oh, well, yeah.
One article described it as supporters being shocked and in tears.
It must have felt like a total blindside.
It's interesting, though, right? It's like the sense of disbelief is something we've seen before.
Oh, yeah, back in 2016 when Trump first won.
Exactly.
So it seems like even people who are super involved in politics can be surprised by how public opinion shifts.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder that we don't always have our finger on the pulse of the electorate.
Okay, so what about Trump himself?
Yeah.
What's he been saying since the election?
Well, his victory speech was really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he talked a lot about healing and fixing the country.
Huh. Does that signal a different tone for him? Like maybe a more unifying approach this time around?
Maybe, but I think it's important to wait and see what his actions are.
Yeah, good point.
Like, will his policies actually reflect this message of unity?
Right.
And will he actually try to bridge the divides in the country?
Those are the real questions.
Right, exactly. Because ultimately, it's his actions that will determine the true impact of his presidency.
So we've got this historic political comeback,
Yeah.
a dramatic reshaping of the electoral map,
Mm-hmm.
and hints of some major demographic shifts.
Right.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it all together.
It really is. And it begs the question, like, where does American politics go from here?
Right. Like, what does all of this mean for the future?
It's hard to say for sure, but one thing to think about is how this unexpected outcome might reshape the entire political landscape.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, will we see a realignment within both the Republican and Democratic parties?
That's a good question.
And will new political coalitions emerge as a result of this election?
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how all of this plays out.
Me too. And how will this impact the upcoming midterm elections?
Yeah, that's another big one.
There's a lot to unpack in the months and years ahead, for sure.
Definitely. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
It flew by.
I know, right? But I hope this conversation has given you all something to think about.
Absolutely.
And thanks as always for sending in these amazing articles.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
See ya.